I honestly can't believe it's been 10 years. I feel like we're still kids in some ways. I mean, a lot of us still hang out together, and we go out on the weekends, and we still goof around, and I honestly can't believe it's been 10 years. And, you know, some of us are married now. Some of us have kids. We have careers. A few of us have moved away.
Can't believe I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
He asked me a question. I can't believe it.
10 years.
Rick called me, almost cried. Jermaine, 10-year. I said, oh my God, Rick. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was talking about like a school reunion, like going back to school. You know, you have 10-year reunions.
And that was because of how much I enjoyed to play with the guys that I was able to play with. And to know that there was that team mindset and that camaraderie. And I look back and, you know, it was absolutely worth it.
10 years. Going into, this year, being that it's, 2008, I'm thinking, man, it's been 10 years since, my friends and I have got together and we played our senior year of football. And, looking back, it seems like, just last year that we were, getting ready to get sent out from the stadium. We had a send-off before we left for Hershey, and it just seems like it was last year. Time's gone so fast. We still talk about the games and stories and memories and, just locker room and people getting in trouble and just everything, and I think each story is elevated each time that it's been told, There's always a the fish keeps growing as the story goes on.
Well, it's hard to believe that everyone's now 28, 29 years old, and of course we won't say how old I am at this particular point, but 10 years is unbelievable. Whenever it was brought to my attention we were going to do this 10-year reunion for the 98 team, I thought, 10-year reunion for 98, that was just a few years ago. And here it's 10 years. It's hard. I mean, it makes you stop and pause and really think about how exciting that year was.
Hot. Very hot.
We had eggs and bacon and sausage before the game, and it was 95 degrees in August, and we came out, and every one of us, I think, was sick. Every single one of us, and that was Summit Academy's first year of football, I think.
It was our first game ever.
And they had a great bunch of athletes, but no discipline and no real game plan.
Well, didn't the field slant too? With the surface we were playing on, it was like, you'd go up and down as you drive down the field.
There was their quarterback actually threw for 200 yards against us that game.
I remember we were out in defense, and in every play, Chris Griffin would be talking in the defensive huddle. And then after I call out the huddle, we'd break, and then he'd say, D, what defense are we in? And I'd tell him. And so, one time, he said, what defense are we in? And I'm like, I'm not telling you. And so he's like, what do you mean you're not telling me? I'm like, I'm not telling you. Listen to the huddle. And he got furious at me.
Honestly, the way I view the team is just that. We were a team. We were a group of individuals who would come together not only during the games but at practice. And I've said this many times, we are a bunch of goofy guys and we would horse around, but when Coach Matzook would blow that whistle, we really would change our attitude and we would step on that field with a purpose. Every single day was another day of work. We really did consider football our job, and we took it very serious. And even as 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, as individuals, we took our job very serious.
All through camp, I was practicing safety and corner, so he puts me in Summit Academy, and I started outside linebacker. I have no clue what I'm doing. Every time I look at the game now, I see I'm just running around in circles. All I had to do was drop in the flat and make tackles. I had no clue, but from that game on, that's the position I stuck at, and they trusted me, and I ended up playing there, and it turned out to be great. hard hitting.
It was a tough
Dirty.
game. Yeah, they were very, well, they were dirty, basically. I mean, and tough.
I think they scored a touchdown, and I think their tailback threw his middle finger up and grabbed himself as he jumped up and down the sideline and pointed at our fans. And I think that the game was well in hand here, but that just goes to show you the class of that program. and that carried on the field in the way that they played because they were very dirty. They hit hard, but they were a very dirty football team.
Yeah, they were aggressive. They were a bunch of tough kids, and I'd say there's a lot of talent on that team, but not a lot of discipline. But they were tough, aggressive, and man, you knew when you played Union, you were going to be sore.
Our team knew a few tricks too, like that, and for us to say they were a tough, dirty team, I mean, that says a lot right there.
Yeah.
It's not like we were angels, but
We weren't angels. By the way,
They say practice.
we kicked their butts anyway.
Yeah.
being able to kind of sit back and watch our starting defense go every day in practice, I was happy that I didn't have to go up against you guys, to be perfectly honest. I was glad that I was on this team because I don't think I would want to face Caleb and Jermaine and Daryl and Mookie on defense. They were very relentless.
We created a defense basically around him, and it was Blue Death cover 5, where Mookie would act as our monster. And I would play in the middle by myself, and Mookie would just go to different sides of the field and he would blitz. And he would just, oftentimes he would overrun the play, but, he would cause so much havoc in the other team's backfield that they couldn't even get a play started.
My expectations for the year were to start. I felt on a personal level I didn't do my best the year before, and that's something I still regret to this day, that I didn't really put my full heart and soul into starting for this team the prior years. So to say I was motivated my senior year is an understatement. I felt it was my responsibility to be the quarterback for this team. I grew up playing with you guys, and for Mighty Mites, midgets, junior high, I was the quarterback of the team. And to go through those first 2 years of high school and not be the quarterback of the team, it hurt, honestly, but it gave me a lot of drive, and it filled me with a lot of anger and anticipation, and I felt like it was my personal goal to start for this team. Not necessarily start for myself. It wasn't a personal thing. I felt like I'd be letting my team down and letting my friends down if I didn't start that year.
Zach Harvey to Chris Griffin on a shooting hook. Chris bobbled it. Kid from Neshannock picked it off, ran. They scored 6-0. They're going crazy.
Wait, why is that got to be the memory?
Because that's the first thing that pops in my head when I think of Neshannock.
So yeah, they scored first.
Yeah.
And I remember that Coach Matzik had told us that they were out practicing 2 days, I think, that week, and come out that Friday before the game and had full practice, and that they were going to come out and hit us in the mouth. And that program really, they didn't have the talent to match up with us well. And Coach Matzik actually went on to coach at Neshannock after that, years later.
We need to cut that part out.
Yeah.
There was no such point in my life where I ever did anything like that.
And the funniest thing too is Union and Neshannock, we were so good as a team. We didn't know our full potential, but the key was, the coach has never one time said, let's just go out, we're going to dog them or beat them by 50 points.
Yeah.
It was always a mentality. Getting back to work ethic,
Yeah, we set the bar up high for a lot of teams that year for '98 in a lot of respects. Not just with the fact that we went 15-0, but the things that took place in the off season with the weightlifting, the whole attitude about the anticipation for the year, the work ethic. We had some championship teams in the past, like I said, in '91, '92, we went back to back, but '98 team took it to another level. I mean, it was just ratcheted it up, just another quarter of an inch. You know what I mean? And that was the difference. I'm sorry, but I was going to say the down point of that game. I believe that's when we lost Mike.
Yeah.
Mike Rowell.
Yeah.
We lost him for the season, and Brandon had to step in from that point on. So that was probably the downside of that game.
Going into the season, I had no thought that we would possibly go 15-0. I honestly didn't think about it. I was so consumed with each game and preparing for each game and even preparing for each individual practice that I don't think any of us really looked too far ahead. It was, we had Union, so we're going to do the best we can against Union. Then we had Neshannock, we're going to do the best we can against Neshannock, and on and on.
Hot.
Another hot game.
It was hot. A great speech before the game.
Reality wins.
Reality wins was the premise of the speech. Western Beaver had been our first test of the season, and we came out and played really tough, and it was a smash mouth game, and we were fortunate to really come out and win that game.
I remember for the Western Beaver game at halftime, it was so hot. We weren't thinking about, okay, what are we going to do in the second half? Everyone was taking their equipment off and laying on the concrete floor.
Yeah, they had concrete floor. It's nice and cold.
Yeah, that was the hottest game ever.
Well, I mean, our expectations were that this was going to be our year. I mean, I knew coming into '98 that if we could not get hurt, Darryl didn't help that right off the bat, okay? But not get hurt, okay? Stay healthy, not have any bad breaks go against us. Hopefully the weather cooperates, that type of thing. That we would have a good shot of cashing in at the end of the year. Once they got that playbook in their hands, the attitude behind that playbook stuck with them as well, and that was the playbook says, listen, we're going to impose our will on other teams in order to win. And that's what the playbook says. We're going to run the ball, we're coming at you, you know what we're running, we know what we're running, and then we'd complement it in other ways, but the bottom line is we were going to impose the Rochester will on other teams. Those guys were the epitome of doing that. All I had to do was say it, and they carried it out. And as a coach, that's the greatest feeling, to know that the words that come out of your mouth will result in action on the field, because they're going to actually think the same way you think. And they did. I mean, these guys are all smash mouth mentality guys, and don't take any crap. They were always that way. And have some fun after you work, same attitude. I mean, it was a good, we had a connection that even today, 10 years afterwards, the connection's still there.
Just flip into the end zone. Well, it was a very simple pass play. Griffin, we were playing Western Beaver, and Chris was wide open a couple different times, but for some reason he decided he was going to catch the ball and leap into the end zone, which is illegal, and we got a 15-yard penalty on. I to this day, I still don't know why he did that, what got into him, but he really enjoyed that touchdown.
So whenever we got to Reynolds, we didn't really know too much about them. I believe they were a AA school up in District 10. And I remember coming off the bus, and their cheerleaders standing there as we each stepped off the bus. And they just had this, their eyes, wide open and just mouths open in awe. And I remember one cheerleader in particular said to us, "Oh my God, please don't kill our guys." And, we went out and really just, and we've said this throughout this highlight tape, imposed our will on that team. And I mean, we really could do whatever we wanted against that team. That's how dominant we were.
We could have like slowed up and took it easy, but even a game that we knew, okay, we're probably going to win this, we still took it very serious, and we could have only played the starters, 1 or 2 quarters. Well, actually, I think we did.
Yeah, I thought you played 1 half.
Yeah.
We'll go to war with anybody. That year, with my 98 team, those seniors, they believed they could beat anybody. Anybody. Any classification. Whether or not we win or lose, it made any difference. I knew one thing. We took the field. You better buckle up because we're not backing down. And that going in, walking onto a sideline and out of a locker room as a coach, know that you can't block anybody. You can't run the ball. You can't throw a pass. You can't tackle. Nothing. It's all on the guys you talk to all week, and have them carry that plan out is something that a lot of coaches never get a chance to experience, and because of this 98 team, I was able to experience it.
15-0, I'd have never thought it. Knowing the players we have Daryl, Rick, Daman, Zach Harvey. I mean, big key players in our team. Just the thought of 15-0, I mean, you take game by game. I mean, I could never imagine going undefeated. I mean, what team has gone undefeated, in the pros or, a little twerk football or even high school? But I knew we were going to be successful, just like, the people we had on our team.
Southside was a statement game for us because we had lost to them twice the year before.
Yep.
And
we were tied at halftime, right?
7-7.
And we were tied at halftime. We were undefeated coming into play Southside, and I think they may have had 1 loss, but that was a measuring stick for us because the season before we had lost twice to them, and once in the playoffs. And really, at the end of that game, I had gotten punched in the throat and couldn't talk, and I couldn't call out the defensive plays. And I remember after the game just crying because we had lost that game, and I thought we had a pretty special team that year. And I remember Coach Perry at the end of that game when I was crying came up to me, grabbed my face mask and said, "Remember how this feels and never feel it again." And fortunately, I never had to. It lived with me, playing against Southside every year, and Sean McCoon thereafter. And while he was a great player, they did a great job to shut down, not really shut down, but to limit Mookie and Rubin that game. And, we were able to go to different aspects of that game and come out on top there at the end.
Yeah. The season seemed like it was about 2 or 3 years long. We started lifting, I believe, in December, and our championship game was the following December. So we spent 365 days preparing for the season and learning plays and practicing and drilling into our heads that we had something big to do. And there was something on the horizon that we could accomplish that is something that no one's ever done before, that there's a possibility that if we keep working hard and we keep pushing and going for our own personal goals and our team goals, that eventually we could accomplish something that no one else has.
Laurel game.
That was Zach's night.
That was,
it was Harv's night, man. He blew it out.
Yeah,
Lit
it
it
was my
up.
personal best, and I think a touchdown pass or two. I don't think we had difficulty running. I'm not too sure what the circumstances were, but we threw probably twice as much in that game than we ever did before, and it worked. And it was leading up into halftime. I believe we threw every series, and it was nothing big. It was, a couple of play-action plays that would go for 10 yards here, 15 yards there, 5 yards there. But at the end of the game, it added up, and that game made me feel very, very confident. I would say that maybe is the game that I said, okay, I am this team's quarterback. I can, if we need to pass, I can do it. And that game really did give me a lot of confidence that I am a member of this team. I have a role to play, and if need be, I can get the job done. And that was without a doubt my favorite game to play on a personal level.
That was a game that I remember and I can't remember the exact play, but it was a sprint draw. From that game on, you'll see it in the highlights. But that one play, we ran against Monaca here at Rochester. I don't know how many times. They just couldn't stop it. They knew it was coming, and they couldn't stop it. It was three plays in a row.
You also see in the highlight tape, Rubin running that play, and instead of juking, which we all knew he could have, he would just try to run over the person.
Yeah, he ran a guy over. 5'4". He ran a guy over, and then we ran it maybe the next drive, the same play, and it was the same guy, and he went up, and he gave him his inside leg and cut back to the outside and scores a touchdown.
We're always talking about we're this well-oiled machine. We're 15-0, and we're so serious when we get on the field. I would say at least every other play, someone would go, I'd call out the play, we'd be lined up, 2 or 3 linemen would turn around going, wait, what's it on? Wait, what? Daryl, what do I do here? We're so professional, but almost every single play, someone would be asking, Harv, what's it on? It's on centers or on what? And I'd say, I don't know, Daryl, what is it on? And I'd have to turn around.
Because you're thinking about the play.
He did that twice. Someone else did.
Mookie tried. Yeah, and then Mookie tried to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, we played at Farrell,
which can be intimidating. Well, that Farrell game was one of the games where I think it was our first game where we weren't getting 15 yards a clip. We were having to pound out 5 yards here, 8 yards there. And it was just like helmet on helmet each and every play.
Farrell with J.J. Wilson and company, and the fact that their tradition, like our tradition, their expectations are winning, just like our expectations were winning. I knew that was going to be a game that we were going to have to be on our toes, and that would be a measuring point for us, because all of our practices, and I think our players will tell you the same thing, we said it many times during practice, we're not interested in how good you are versus some of the weak sisters in the league. We're getting you ready for Farrell. We're getting you ready for Monaca. We're getting you ready for the teams that are at the top, because that's what's going to measure a champion. And so all of our practices, whether we were going against the weak sisters in the league who never won a game for a couple of years, they were all basically as intense as Monaca week or Farrell week, because our goal was to be the best we can be to be able to compete against Farrell and Monaca.
I say my favorite game is Farrell. I'm going to Farrell. Because before that, my father said, the guy took a look at me, he said, your son's nothing. That's what he said on the sidelines. Rochester football is nothing. So going to that game, my father told me that. It just amped it up even more. J.J. Wilson throwing around on the carpet. You don't get better feeling than that.
You watch the Farrell game, the first Farrell game, and you just see our offensive line just taking Farrell's defensive line, and I'm telling you, and it's a white wall. It's like a wave of white wall taking this yellow wall, and it's just being pushed back like 10 yards. You see Caleb Merson pancaking somebody, Berzaki pancaking. And the bridge game. This is a game I'd have to say where this stadium was filled to capacity. Around this whole entire stadium, and it was 4 deep. outside the gate. I mean, everywhere. We came out for the first wave. It's a bunch of guys that come out and start warm up first. These stands were packed. The first wave's at what, 6:15 usually. That's the time the first wave was. So kickoff about 7:30. This stadium was packed.
We got earlier in the season, we got a taste of like how intense a big game could be with Farrell.
Yeah.
But just the intensity for that game was unbelievable.
I believe it was this game that we have one of those plastic thermostat covers in the locker room, and I believe this was the game that before we came out to the field, Mookie punched it, and then he took a piece of it and started eating it. And I mean, you know, that's how Mookie played the game too, with that just
he
reckless
dumped over
abandon,
Pap's,
that mindset. I mean, he came in, he took all the setup Powerade and he just tossed it, and he was just, you know, he was very animate, you know, before we came out that game. And you know, Mookie did play, you know, he played a whale of a game.
It's awesome because, I mean, that was for the section. Not only the section, but the bridge. The bridge is the biggest thing. When you play at Rochester versus Monaca, you got to win that game. That's how their mentality is too, Monaca. I mean, you don't want to lose the bridge ever. You know what I mean?
We didn't have the season wrapped up either. We had to.
Yeah, we had to win the section and the bridge. If you lose, you lost the bridge and the section.
And they had come out. I think the Blocos' average yards per carry were like 22 or 23 yards per carry.
Oh, they were dominant.
In that game against us, I believe he had 7 carries for like 28 yards. And then at Three Rivers, the Blanco had 21 carries for 75 yards. So about the same average yards per carry. But just, you know, it really goes to show what our defense was able to do to shut them down.
And the Monaca game obviously was a great game during the season. Hard hitting. They had a tremendous football team. They really did. Not as good as we were.
Everyone pictured Ruben as the center of that group, and Ruben had an outstanding season. You know, he played with a lot of heart all throughout the year. I remember here against Monaca, you know, in front of thousands of people there, you know, right before halftime, you know, I remember throwing a block on Mike Rossi and springing Ruben into the end zone, and he got hit, but he broke a tackle and scored. And on that play, he chipped his tooth in half. And I know he's in a lot of pain, and I know at halftime I think they gave him some anesthetic to numb the pain, and he came back out in the second half. And he played, and you know, that was a great win for us. I think that was a statement game when we came out, and you know, I think that it said a lot about, you know, the team as a whole.
The bridge game our senior year was my first opportunity to start in that game, and I'll be honest, I was very nervous because years past I was on the sidelines. I didn't get an opportunity to play in that game. All my friends had. They'd all at least been on special teams or, you know, gotten to spell a few guys and get in there, and I hadn't. And I guess I was jealous that my friends got to play the 2 years before and I didn't, and I was nervous and excited, and you know, I couldn't wait for the first whistle to blow and for that first snap to happen so that the nerves would go away. And one of the things I'm most proud of is I got to throw a touchdown pass. I threw a touchdown to Kurt Braum. It was towards the end of the game, and up until that point, it had been back and forth. We had the lead, but that touchdown really, I think, tipped the scales, and it put us over the top. And it was only a 10-yard pass. Kurt was wide open, but to be able to say that I threw a touchdown pass in the bridge game, it made me very, very proud. And that is still one of my favorite memories today, is being able to throw that touchdown pass and know that I was a part of that win. I had a direct impact on that game on a personal level, and you know, that makes me very, very proud. They talked a lot. I remember that coming into the game. Their coach was really trying to get their team pumped up, saying things in the newspapers, certain quotes, and
Nice try.
Yeah. We actually got our starting center back that game, Tom Howler. The Western Beaver game, he tore his ACL, I think it was, or MCL. But anyway, he came back that game, got a little playing time, and then just got back in the starting lineup. He was our starting center for the best out and probably one of our toughest linemen.
We never, at least I never thought about whether or not we were going to go 15-0. But I do remember thinking this. Once we went through the season, we were undefeated and won the Big Seven. I started thinking, Now we can't lose now. Like, we could afford to lose one and make a mistake and have some growing pains for the season, you know, but not anymore. It's full speed ahead. And I think we all got into a more focus once the season or the postseason started.
But you know, the backfield, you get Randy Bacon, you know, who would come in and play. You had Kirby Griffin, of course, and I just think, you know, and as I said before, you know, Mookie, you know, who really stepped up as the season progressed, that, you know, that backfield as a whole really was extremely strong.
I can't remember the name of the play, but Griffin was split out, and when I got to the huddle, I called the play and I said, Griffin, you're going to be open. I'm throwing the ball to you. And the coaches probably wouldn't like to hear that because I was supposed to check down and see who was actually open, but he and I just had a feeling that he was going to be wide open, and sure enough, he did a post pattern, and it just seemed perfect. It didn't start occurring to me that we could possibly go undefeated until we got into the playoffs. And after that first playoff game against Cornell, we were so dominant, and it was like, well, we have a shot here. I really do think this is a possibility.
We came out to shake their hands, Ruben, Jermaine, and I, for the captains and the coin toss. And I'll never forget, they had one of their players who had his face painted. And when he came out, he was just growling. He was just, and we were looking at each other like laughing, you know, because, you know, I mean, you know, we knew Wilkinsburg was fast and they were good, but, you know, this isn't typical, obviously, of players. And I remember the referee, before he would toss the coin, turned to him and said, you know, son, can you please stop?
They were a team of individuals. They weren't a team. You know, they were arguing with each other, and, you know.
I remember how they were a very big team, but I remember the week prior, Coach Master kept saying, this team, they're stinking fast. They're the state champions in the 400, the 4x4, whatever it was.
4x1, yeah.
4x1, yeah. And they were fast.
They could not run me on that interception.
This game actually had one of Ruben's best touchdowns because he got the ball, he fumbled, and it bounced right back up to him, and he ran for a touchdown.
Yeah.
You could just see, you know, whenever I would speak, whenever we have, whether it was a pregame talk or whether it was a talk after practice, before practice, whether it was during camp, these guys, this team, this group of seniors was always on the same page as I was whenever I was talking. When we talked about X's and O's, even though Zach wanted to throw the ball a lot more than he did, the X's and O's we were always on the same page. They believed in this. They believed that we're going to be a smash mouth football team. We're going to complement that game with a passing game.
One of my favorite plays of the whole entire year was actually an interception that I threw. I threw an interception against Wilkinsburg, and I was so afraid to have to get up that next morning and sit there during films and get berated because I didn't get up and try to stop that play. I threw that ball, bad pass, got intercepted. I was on the ground and I saw that guy running down the sideline. I don't think I've ever run that fast in my entire life. I don't know if it was adrenaline or fear, but I tracked that guy down and I tackled him. I did not want him to score because of my bad play, and I still remember that to this day. And to Coach Master's credit, during films, he paused and I'm like, oh no, what's he gonna say? He goes, that is hard. That is what winning is all about.
came out against Farrell for the second game, we knew, you know, the stakes were higher. You know, this was to get to Three Rivers. So this was to get an opportunity to achieve the goal that we had.
Since we were
and Farrell, of course, had Sam Gash back. And, you know, we didn't know really what to expect. You know, we knew that he was a good player, good athlete. And Farrell had, of course, played us pretty tough the first time. But, you know, we came out and really just dominated that first half so much. You know, I think it was 35-6.
35-0.
35-0, 35-6. And, you know, the intensity that we played that first half with was amazing.
It was like, no one expected that, you know. It's tough to beat a team twice, you know, and to be at halftime against Farrell, who was, you know, could have easily won a Whitfield championship that year along with Monaca, but, you know, to be at 35-0 in halftime, you're just thinking, man, with the athletes that they have, and, you know, like Daryl said, that was the game to get us to Three Rivers, and we've been waiting for that since we were 5th and 6th grade, and Farrell wasn't getting in our way for that game.
I mean, look at the O-line. Like you said, you got Sean Zackney and Tom Highwiller. I mean, we're not very big in high school, you know, 220, 200 pounds, but just, I mean, the hearts, I mean, right there, our state championship defines what a team actually is. I mean, you can be the smallest guy, you got Rick Daman playing corner. Our O-line was, you know, small. When you fire off the line, I mean, that defines you.
Yeah, the rebound.
The ball was definitely bouncing our way, and that, I keep saying, that was the best defensive game I think I ever saw you guys play.
The semifinal game with Farrell, that was my 100th win as a coach, and what a sweet victory that was to be able to do that against Farrell.
I mean, the scariest game for me is going up to Monaca. Not there when we went to the championship, the playoffs, up at Three Rivers. I mean, I just had doubts right there. I mean, I'm like, what are we going to do as a team? And I mean, to pull it so close, people say, oh, you only won by a couple points. It doesn't matter. A win's a win. If you win by a field goal, if you win by 20 points. Just going up there and seeing that right there was a turning point of our team. I mean, it's so late in the season, but it defined us as individuals. Like, what are you really going to do is step up? I mean, seeing that in each one of your eyes so young, and, you know, being in high school, you don't, I mean, it's like men playing with boys.
It was a great game to be a part of, just the smash mouth aspect of it. You know, they matched up really well against us with their size. We were a faster team, and you know, that speed in the end was really what got us through.
And, of course, we went down to Three Rivers, and we had the scare and went into overtime. I personally thought that we did not play our best game, number one. And number two, I think because, you know, when you beat a team the first time and you feel pretty confident, sometimes you lose a little bit of an edge. And Monaca was looking to fight back and get that respectability all over again. So they gave us a scare that really, they catapulted us to the state championship game, because when that game was over, I think there was a wake-up call for the whole team that, wow, you know, because we weren't on top of our game, we almost blew it.
We knew that we wanted to get to the Three River Stadium because being 5th and 6th graders, watching Sean Edge, Wade Sarver, Brian Burton, Bob Adaki, Essex Law, watching those guys on the 91 and 92 teams playing here and getting to Three Rivers, we knew that's what we wanted to do. So when we were in 5th and 6th grade, we said, that's what we're going to do.
You know, really the fact that we weren't able to make it, you know, and they weren't able to make it, I think we had one or two blocks.
No, Chris blocked one.
Chris blocked one of
which
theirs.
would have probably been good.
Right, which probably would have been good.
No one ever talks about that.
You know,
It was, like I said earlier, it wasn't our best game at first, but our guys rose to the occasion. You can just tell by how they talk now. They talk the same way 10 years ago. They talk like coaches. They understand the mindset. Even though when outside the lines, you know, we've got a bunch of characters inside the lines. You know, we were all together. We came together at Three Rivers against Monaca. They go ahead. Rubin breaks a 75-yard run. I believe he pulled his back muscle in that play. Yeah. And the next week he couldn't play. He really wasn't at full strength for the state championship game. But that was probably the epitome of, we're behind. I better give it everything I got. Well, he did, to the point where he pulled a back muscle on a 75-yard run, and they could not catch him. And they had some fast guys on their team. So that That was a reflection of the attitude of this team. They weren't going to be denied.
When we scored the touchdown in overtime, we actually pulled a play that we used the year before to win the game at Monaca, and that was a halfback toss instead of trying to kick the two-point conversion.
Yeah.
And so we tossed it to Mookie, and I think he was trying to throw it to Chris, and Monaca knew that play was coming. They coached that play up really well. But we're fortunate to have gotten out of both games there without the ability to make a successful extra point. Thankfully Dave Kindleberger covered, I believe it was Matt Phillips, out of the backfield because I had bid on the DeBacco run fake, and Dave had made a great play and made an interception of a lifetime for us to win that game. And I remember, I had my hands up in Matt Phillips's face, and I remember grabbing Dave, looking around for a penalty for face guarding. Unfortunately, they didn't call it. Dave had made that interception, and I just remember jumping up and down and just thinking, oh my God, did we just win? Did we just win? And seeing the whole sideline of Rochester just run out towards us and just grab us, and we fell on the ground, and really that was the best win of my life.
To end the game on the last play, to win it, that's the first time in my coaching career that happened as well. I was on top of that pile.
Go to the playoffs, Monaca game, that championship game in Three Rivers was, I think, one of the best championship games ever. It was tooth and nail, it was bloody, it was black and blue, and it was a tough game.
Good luck next week.
We made the extra points that game. We thought we had.
Yeah. We made them all that game. It was both teams were 13-0.
Yeah.
We were actually, I remember looking.
We weren't favored for that.
No, we were picked to lose 27-13.
Yeah.
Coach Matson put a clipping up on the board. We used to use a board for motivation, but he had a clipping up there, and I don't know I can't remember who picked it, but we were both undefeated, and they had this DeFilippi quarterback, and he was throwing on every team out there.
But watching films at the beginning of the week, I felt like, oh wow, okay, this is a really good team. The quarterback can run around, he can throw really well. They had a really good wide receiver. But as like the week went on, we were like, wait a minute, this is just another team. We're gonna be fine. It didn't seem like it was that. There was more hype around that team than anything, I felt like.
Yeah. As the week went on, we saw the film, and as the weeks, we just knew that if we did what we had to do, and we lined up and tackled, and we'd be fine. So if we played our game, what we say is, if you play Rochester football, you can't be beat.
Randy Bacon and Mookie stepped up big time.
This was Mookie's probably best game, and underneath
He broke
yards.
1,000 yards.
Yeah, I believe he did break 1,000 that game, but he just ran the ball like he wasn't going to be stopped. And there's really great runs, and just really showed his athleticism, and really he helped us achieve such a dominant win.
It was a good party after that game too.
One of my great games was against Smithport. I mean, me personally, I made a lot of tackles. It was just the hustle. I hustled every game, but it just seemed like it just kicked on at Smithport. Like that was like, this is it. We arrived and just played like it. So I feel Smithport was, a good game for me. A lot of tackles, a couple sacks. We just run around like bandits.
But Smithport, I remember getting onto the bus, and Coach Matzik had printed out for us the article. I believe it was a news article from '92 when the '92 team played Smithport, and they had lost that game. And I remember they printed out the article for us, and we got on the bus, and just the thought process was, this was another. I think they were 13-0 at that point, the same as us. And that really gave us the mindset that we needed for that game. And I think as we progressed throughout the season, it really started to set in that we had something really special. And you had players get hurt throughout the year, but you had players behind that would step up and play. And whether it was a Kirby Griffin or a Brody Majors, Eric Krebs coming in the offensive line. You had a lot of depth for a Class A team. And it was really important, you know, when you look back at the guys that we lost that year, you know, at certain points, you know, we lost Mike Rao, who was a great outside linebacker. We lost Tom Highwiller, you know, for a couple games. You know, I think everyone remembers Chris Placco in the Whitfield championship game, you know, when he got hurt. And Brody Majors, I believe he came in that game, and he threw, you know, a great block there in overtime to score Mookie. So, you know, I think that, you know, the depth of the team there, you know, is something that gets overlooked. But for a Class A team, you know, we had a lot of depth, and you had guys that would come in and you really wouldn't lose a step. You know, after we beat Smethport, of course, 41-6 in the regional, you know, which I think that set a statement as well to the eastern side of the state.
Going into, you know, knowing that this was your last game that you'll ever play, football-wise, you know, it was, you know, you were a little uneasy going into it because you didn't know what to expect. You never played in a game of that magnitude, and seeing Southern Columbia run on that field, you know, we were doing our warm-ups, and they come out of the locker room and they just kept coming, Yeah. I'm like, how many guys they got?
When they lined up,
you know, they got bigger as they came. I'm telling you, I'm thinking, man, they're big, and I'm like, man, they're playing against us, you know. It wasn't like we're coming here to, you know, they got to play the Rams. So it was a nervous game, but, you know, it worked out. We got our first shutout. It was great.
Nah, I mean, going to the state game, just the players that we had, the season that we were having, I did have a little fear of the size going into them. Like, you know, we're pretty decent sized as individuals, but
A lot of key plays in that game. I mean, the opening drive when we fumbled, and I didn't believe it was Kurt recovered the fumble. A lot of people don't even realize it.
Yeah.
On the bottom of that pile, he did not have the ball.
No,
he had to pull that ball away from Southern Columbia.
you know, people talked it up. You know, they're from the country. They got big 350-pounders. I'm thinking to myself personally, how am I going to stack up, you know, against some of that caliber? But I mean, look at the speed and quickness we had on our front line. That's why they rode a goose egg and we came out victorious.
We went into that game almost like, okay, we have a battle plan. We're going to stick to it no matter what they do. We're going to counteract. And we did, and our defense played a tremendous game, and they, you know, came up with a goose egg because they stuck to their guns and they used their speed and they used their heads, and we came out victorious because I just don't think there was any other way. I just feel like that was what was meant to be.
From the preparation standpoint, I wasn't nervous, but I just, you know, from the standpoint that this really was the culminating point of our football careers, it was nervous, you know, and you know, having seen what we did against Monaca and barely winning that game, to come against Southern Columbia, you know, and really just before that game, just, yeah, you know, I was very nervous, and you know, fortunately we were able to play as a team throughout that whole game, and you know, we pitched a shutout on defense, our only one of the year. And on the eastern side of the state, they made it big to do about how, you know, how we may have trouble, you know, containing this offense, and really our team speed just dominated that, you know, the entire game. You know, the guards take you to the ball basically in that offense.
I felt like this was something that was just going to happen. I felt like, well, we've gotten this far, I just don't think we can lose. And it wasn't about thinking that we were the best team in the state. I just felt like this is almost kind of our destiny. We've gotten this far, we've fought this hard, we're here. I don't think there's any other outcome but to win. I felt like a victory was going to happen, and at no point during that game did I ever feel that we were going to fail.
My personal best game, I'd probably have to say Southern Columbia game, because it was kind of catered towards, you know, it was all wing T, a lot of tosses, a lot of sweeps, and you know, that was kind of my best game. And you know, I actually surprised myself that game, because you know, like Zach was saying, you know, Southern Columbia, they were huge. You know, they were a very big team, and they were fast, they were aggressive, they were strong. But all my games, you know, I had my most tackles that game, and I thought I played the most disciplined football I played out of all 15 games.
we bullied the bully that day.
Yeah.
You know, they were used to bullying everybody, and we kind of stepped up. And as the game went on, you can just see our guys just going to another level.
He's been partying since.
One of the cool parts about that game was Brandon's reaction when he caught the touchdown pass. I have never seen someone with like a greater look of joy. Like there's pictures, and it's on the highlight tape where like his eyes are as wide as saucers.
Yeah.
He's just he's waiting for someone to hug him. He's just like
He didn't know he scored. He's looking around. He's going like this.
Yeah.
He's just waiting for something to jump on.
Ref's like,
That was a proud moment for Coach Father. I mean, he scores, a touchdown in the championship game. You know, my nephew Kurt's hugging him, and Chris comes over, and there's three of them. I think that was the picture in the paper.
Yeah.
There's three of them hugging in the end zone. So that was a proud time. What a way to end the season.
I'd never seen a team that had people that were bigger than Caleb, Bear, and Jermaine. That was the first time that season where they had guys who could match up or were bigger than all of our guys. And I'm not gonna say it was intimidating, but they were a big team, and it was that was a large-scale game.
And really, we just played outstanding.
Well, they ran out of gas too, because they were bigger, yes, but we had better speed. I think we were a lot more disciplined.
no one was
on
in better
defense.
shape than us.
Yeah, and we were in great shape. And towards the end of the game, they just couldn't do. They didn't have enough speed to keep up with us. And, I don't care how big you are. If you're huffing and puffing and we're running by you, we're gonna win.
And they never gave us a chance in a state game against Southern Columbia. I think that's why I was a little bit intimate after the game, is because in the state, the media was unbelievable. And that they basically were talking to us like we should just throw the towel in. So we were licking our chops, waiting for the Southern Columbia wing T and power machine.
I don't want to hear about the Delaware. Zero. Delaware wing T. Zero.
And we shut them down. We shut them down. We've seen wing T teams at Southside here in Beaver County that was much more sophisticated than Southern Columbia.
I don't know. All I remember is that last drive, man. That'll stick in my mind forever. When there was like 3 minutes left in the game, we had the ball, and we were driving. And basically you could see that. We had imposed our will against Southern Columbia, and they kind of just gave up. You can see it on the tape, man. They just kind of feathered down a little bit, and we just kept driving, and Randy Bacon gets a first down, and he's like, first down, and next play, Kirby Griffin gets the ball, and to make it the best, his brother, Chris Griffin, makes the key block to spring Kirby. Kirby's a sophomore, he scores, gets in the end zone, man, it's 18-0, there's 2 minutes, 19 seconds left, and I just remember running up and down the sideline, and you look in the stands, and you see all of Rochester. I'm telling you, all of Rochester was there, and it was just a great feeling. And I remember hugging Zach, I remember hugging Daryl, Coach Danny Roberts. He's still trying to coach us. I'm like, yeah, it's over. He's still trying to get us ready for kickoff, and I'm thinking we just won a state championship. You kidding me?
I mean, backing up. I mean, having a 0 in your record, then going into that game, it's like, did we really just go 15-0? But you kind of expected it once you got later in the season. It's like, okay, we beat Farrell, we beat Monaca. It's like, you can't expect nothing else except a win. I mean, I wasn't surprised at all. I was surprised at the 0 at the end of it, but.
The state championship win was very surreal. I remember when the final whistle blew, did we just do this? Did we just go undefeated? It is over, right? I felt like I had to get confirmation from the coaches and the referees that yes, it is over, you have won. And I remember just looking up in the stands, and I saw my family, my dad and my brother, and after we got the trophies and we went back in the locker room, I actually came back out onto the field, and I crawled into the stands, and I gave my dad a big hug, and that was one of the best moments of my life.
It was just great because to have the guys that you played with from the time that I was, 1989 is our first year out here, and to see those guys that you play with and all the parents, that were at your first game and in your last game, and it meant a lot, to travel that far for a game and the support we had, and I mean, it was great. My family being there, and you ask my mom, she still cry about it. So it was a great feeling, and it's a privilege to be a part of that team. You don't want to let that your teammate down. Whatever you do, you know, you play for the guy beside you, and that's just how we played. And I mean, that all correlates in this, you know, with not turning the football over and getting turnovers, you know, making plays, stepping up.
I mean, we faced so much more adversity that'll never make this tape, that'll probably never be talked about.
Right.
But there's a lot of adversity that we faced throughout this year that can't be talked about, that we overcame. And to be down a touchdown was very small in the overall scheme of the entire year.
As players, we wanted to be that tradition, you know. We wanted to be 91 and 92, and just because you strap on a helmet, you put this helmet on, you buckle up on a Friday night, does not mean that you're part of a tradition. You know, to come out here and play your heart out is part of tradition. You know, to work your tail off every day and give everything you got and want to be what 91, 92, 98, 2000, 2001 want to be what those teams are is tradition. And to carry on that, you need to get to the highest level because the bar has been raised.
I'm very proud, and I hope, you know, the kids these days, I sound like an old man, the kids these days look up to us and respect us, and to realize that we weren't the biggest, we weren't the fastest, I think we were the most disciplined, but we were a team, and it wasn't about individuals, and I hope that other teams think that way, and, you know, as Rochester goes on. Like Rick said, it's a big tradition, and we're a big part of that.
We had an outstanding work ethic. You had a mindset where everyone was willing to work, and we've talked about the season being December to December, and it was from the day we set foot in that weight room, there was an expectation, and it was from the coaches, yes, it was from the captains, yes, but really it was from every player on that team, where if you didn't do your job, if you didn't do your role, you were letting other people down. And it was that mindset that I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do what's required of me, and I'm gonna do it to my absolute best potential. And it was just that work ethic that everyone knew that come Friday night, it wasn't just, you know, you could do whatever you wanted and then Friday night show up and play. It was everything that you did out here for July conditioning, everything you did in the weight room, everything that you did in camp, everything that you did in practice, the sprints and gassers that you ran at the end of the day, that all culminated out here on the field on Friday nights.
Every championship after you guys left, they're all gauged against the 98 team. They're all shooting through that 15-0 season. And even though they got some gold, you know, they don't got the 15-0. So we're still holding on to that.
They said, could you beat a AAA team? I think we could have ran through anybody that year.
Absolutely.
Anyone. I believe that to this day. They said, you know, what was the greatest team? 98 was the greatest team. We could have beat anybody. Any year, pound for pound, down by down, I don't care.
As Bob Barrickman said, you know, that this, you know, the Class A football won't be looked down upon any longer, and that we'll go down as one of the best Class A teams in history. You know, and while you know, Bob Barrickman does a great job, you know, I do not fully agree with that statement. I think that, you know, putting the Class A in front of that really doesn't do us full respect, and I really believe that in any classification, you know, we are one of the best teams in history.
We were the best in Class A, and like Zach said and Daryl said, it's kind of we take it as a smack in the face when someone says, you know, you guys are probably the best Class A team ever. Well, we don't see it like that. You know, we see it as, you know, we'll compete against anybody. You know, we had the size, the speed, the agility, the strength, the mentality. It doesn't matter what your 42 single A guys do or your 55 AAA guys do. Your athletes are just like our athletes, you know. We've always believed that, and with the depth, the size, and the speed that we had, you know, we wanted to play anybody. We didn't care who we played, and you know, we see our team as, you know, one of the best Pennsylvania teams in history.
But that happens, I think, in championship teams everywhere, at every level, at the college level, at the pro level, and in all sports. There's a camaraderie that if you want to be a part of that, then you know what? Go out for the team. Okay, and be a part of it, and you'll have as much fun as everybody else. You'll have to work along with them. I mean, they paid the price for that. I ran these guys' butts off.
Getting to come back to this field and talk about that year is a great honor, and I just feel proud. I feel proud to be a part of that team. I feel proud to come back and to get to be a part of this. And like I said, I honestly can't believe it's been 10 years.